Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's SQL Office Hours session. Today, we're going to be looking at how we can do version control our SQL files and how we can use that to do good deployment for our database code. I'm really excited to have Jasmine Fleury joining me. Hello, Jasmine. You want to say hi?
Hello, Chris. Hi. Yeah, it's nice to be here. Looking forward to this one.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to play the role of we're like the development team working on some kind of HR application, right? So the two of us are building an app, and our boss, I think our boss has got some changes for us, right? So
Yeah, I talked to our boss Cat,
mhm.
and he has a whole bunch of audit job changes. So we have this compliance requirement that we need to fulfill, and now we need to go and code into those requirements.
Okay, so should we see kind of let people know what it is,
Yeah,
figure out what we're doing here? Yeah.
Chris and I are in this imagined scenario working on the HR app. So we have an HR app front end that is used by our HR department. The users are using this, and Chris and I are working on the database side of this application, the HR database, and doing all the code changes, the maintenance, and are the DevOps team for the HR database side.
Yeah. Cool.
The HR app looks like this. A lot of you already know it, probably. We have employees that belong to departments in our company. Those departments are structured into locations. Locations are in different countries and belong to regions. And the center of attention that we have here for the audit job is the job history table. So we want to have a job history for all our employees, and this job history needs to be audited. So it will be extended with insert and update timestamps so that we know which record was inserted at which time and was updated at which time. So to have track of all the changes that happens to this job history table.
Sounds good.
We also need to create a view where we can see which employee has which job history. So like an overview of who did what in our company.
Mm. Okay.
And lastly, a procedure, the change job procedure, where we need to insert data into the job history table.
Okay, that sounds good. So we've got to make these changes. So how do you propose we're going to split up the work here? Because we've got some DDL and some code, right?
Yeah, since I do mostly DDL, so
Mm.
I will cover the DDL part. And are you doing the code, like the view and the procedure? Is that fine for you?
Yeah, I think that works for me. I can take the DDL. You take the DDL. Sorry, as I am struggling figuring out what I'm saying today. So yeah, you do the DDL. I'll code up that view and the procedure, and let's get it done. Right? Boss
Yeah,
cat wants
sounds
this.
good.
Right. Okay. So toki. Let's imagine we've done this.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. So I think imagine time has passed here, and we're actually ready to do this. You ready,
Yeah,
Jasmine? You got
we
all your changes
implemented
there?
all the code, yeah, and we're ready to run it out against an environment.
Cool.
Production in our case, of course.
Of course, of course. So let's get it live. Boss cat
Yeah,
doesn't want to wait, right?
yeah, we don't have time.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So let's go and do this. Let's just run this change. So start off with, as Jasmine said, we want to create a view showing the complete job history. So the employee row shows what their current job is, and their job history is their previous job. So we want the overall view, so their current and their past, all in one thing. So we can do that, and let's create that thing, and that has worked. And then we're going to create a procedure to actually manage the change. So when someone changes job, they change role or whatever, we capture their current job history and update their new job so we know where they're going. So let's create that procedure, and procedure created. Looking good so far. And we just look at our job history table. So we've got it. So that's where we are at the moment. So let's just check. So this is our view, and it gives us, like I say, the overview of an employee's full employment history and their current job. So we got the president, boss cat, and I think he's getting too bossy. What do you think, Jasmine?
Yeah, I think he's very bossy.
Yeah. So let's bump him back down to a programmer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not happy about this. So let's just check that worked, and we can see. So yeah, we can see we've got the full history. We've got the date they've changed, and they've been moved over. So I think that's looking good. I mean, we are in production. We should probably roll this back, right? So
Yeah, roll it back so Boss Cat is our boss again.
yeah, I don't think they'll be too happy if he
Yeah.
doesn't let that happen. All right. So that was the code, but I haven't. I need the DDL, right? So can you just like Slack that to me,
Yeah,
please?
I slacked it to you. You just can copy
All right.
paste it.
Yeah, let me just pick that out. Let me just get those DDL. Oh, I've got too many windows going on here, right? That's the thing when you're doing a live release and trying to get things done. Okay, so let's just paste that in. So there's your changes there. So okay, that worked. So now I'm just going to go over to the application test. We don't actually have an app really, so just kind of simulate what we're going to do here. So we're going to run this as the app test user. So they should be able to see this view and run the changes. And we can see table
Ooh,
view does
that.
not exist. They don't have procedure. I think have I missed something, Jasmine?
Yeah, did you get my grants as well? I
Oh
also slacked them.
God! All right, I scrolled didn't scroll down far enough, right? I wasn't paying enough attention here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get those grants and actually do that. So now we can run the procedure and access the view. So HR app should be able to do these things now. So we can do that. That's looking good. But
Oh,
uh-oh. HR, oh
oh.
dear. It's invalid. Okay. So they've got access, so we've got the grants, right? But okay, let's just try. Why is this invalid? Let's just try running this again. Compilation errors. Let's just try running this all again. Not enough values. It's not looking very good here, is it?
No, it looks like a mess. Can
Yeah,
you quickly revert the changes?
yeah. I think I see the problem. We've just got inserts without listing the columns, and I'm getting a bit worried and scared here. So I
Yeah,
think,
I guess so. This is production, so and it's in the middle of the afternoon. We should probably,
yeah.
yeah,
All
put it
right.
back into a working state.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't write rollback scripts. But fortunately, we did create a restore point before actually doing the release. So we can flash back the database. So I'm in the container database. Notice I need to actually shut it down and restart it and reopen it. And hopefully, this will just back out all our changes. See a lot of people are like ooh faces like
Yeah,
oh yeah
loads of reactions.
yeah exactly. I think yeah. All right, so we're definitely reset. So the new objects we created aren't there, and we look at the job history table. Okay, so we've backed things out. We managed to do that reasonably quickly, right? I think
Yeah, that was quick. I hope, yeah, our boss didn't get it that there
yeah
was a an outage.
yeah. I think well there was only 2 or 3 minutes, right? Hopefully we're
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, but well, let's see. So yeah, just to kind of recap what we did, we had our procedures and we forgot to list out all the columns doing select star and insert. So when we did the DDL, what happened? Everything fell over. Oh dear. Oh well. At least we could
Yeah.
recover and restore things back. Right. So what do you think? Do you think we got away with that, Jasmine?
I think so. Yeah. Let's ask and
Yeah.
maybe we have an email already. Let's see.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah.
yeah, I don't know about you, but I've got an email from Boss Cat, right?
Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I need to go talk to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, we obviously have no more production access. He's quite mad at us
hmm.
for doing it directly in production. We should have probably done it in test first.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea. I think that
Maybe,
would have been a
yeah,
very good idea.
for next time.
Yeah.
So yeah, he revoked production access for us. So all the change that we want to do needs to go over DBA department.
Mm, yes. Okay. I mean, it was kind of fun doing it like just ad hoc on the production, right?
Maybe it was a bit naive.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It was a bit naive. All right. Okay.
But he also wants to know what happened. So let's quickly go through
Yeah, let's recap
through
recap our
the
process.
recap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get my fixes that I implemented when I did the DDL? I saw that you already did some coding, so I corrected your code in a couple of ways and put it in back into version controls.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you'd fix anything. I didn't change it.
Oh, so what was your baseline of for the code? It should have been in version control. I'm pretty sure it was there.
Well, I mean, I guess you might put it in source control, but you just saw that script that I had there. That's what I did. That was what I was working from. That's
Okay.
okay,
Oh,
right? That's what could have gone wrong? Well, we saw what went wrong, right? Mm,
yeah. That was quite a disaster. So we
okay,
had different versions of our scripts then.
okay. So you would actually fix it on my
Yeah,
mess.
I fixed it, but you completely missed that one.
Yeah, I completely missed that one. All right. Mm,
Okay, now we need to write a report. So let's list what happened in the right order.
yeah, okay. Boss Cat's not happy with us. Okay.
He's not happy. No.
All right. So yeah. So like you say, let's just imagine, where it's Monday. Like I say, I first create the procedure in the view. And I just did that in our development database and on that script that we saw just now in the demo, right? So I did that first, and then you said you came in and did some DDL.
Yes, exactly. I added the timestamp columns on the job history table. So did the DDL and fixed your code because you were missing those columns in your code.
Mm. Okay.
That was I did on Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah. So and then you check that in, right?
Yeah, and then I checked it into version control and thought, yeah, that's it.
Okay, and I completely didn't check version control, did I? I just kind of worked with what I had, and then ad hoc, tried it all out. So, okay, I see where we went wrong here. Okay,
I can see
um,
that too.
yeah, we got out of sequence, and I didn't really follow the process properly, right? So,
Yeah.
okay. Alrighty then. So I think we need to, Bosscat's obviously not happy with us. I think we need to write the report, but also have some recommendations or figure out how we're going to fix this, right? I don't think it's going to be enough to just say, this is what we did. Sorry, right? What do you think?
Yeah. Like, let's have a plan on how to do it correctly so that it won't fail again.
Okay.
So, well, the problem is now, since we flashback production, we
Mm,
have a different state in version control than we have in production. So we don't know which changes are really, which changes did make it into production before we flashback, and which did. So we need to update our version control from production.
mhm,
So we need to check if those sources match.
mhm,
If they don't, we have this version drift. A version drift is always when source control didn't match the environment where we're deploying changes to.
mm. Okay.
So we now need to get all the DDL from production and make a refresh of our code into version control. So
Okay.
all the elements, all the objects that we have, we just need to refresh with the state of production. Then we have a clean baseline where we can then start all over again.
That sounds good. All right. So yeah.
But the thing is, we need to figure out how we get the DDL, and I guess we have a plethora of options to
Hmm.
get those. There's SQLcl, DDL, data pump, SQL developer, Liquibase. We even have SQL project command. And there's even a version to get all the DDL that is named after you, right?
There is?
The Saxon SQL extension.
Well, I don't know. If it was named after me, I don't know anything about this, right? If it wasn't,
Okay. It stores the SQL in XML.
oh, okay. That sounds brave, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this shouldn't be a recommendation to use it. So don't use this if you ever find it on the internet.
Mm. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Like I say, this. I don't know. Trying to manage it with XML. Well, I'm sure it worked for someone, right? But I'm not
Maybe
brave
it
enough to do
did. They developed this, so
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So like as Jasmine said, there's lots of different ways to do this, and the question here is like, well, which do you use? And it's kind of up to personal preference. But I think one of the things to be aware of is that under the covers, pretty much all of them use DBMS metadata, right? So this package we can use to get the state of our code and see, how to create the tables, what our packages and procedures are, and so on and so forth. So, for example, we can use this, run this get DDL for the employees table in the HR schema, and it will give us something that looks a little bit like this, right? What do you think, Jasmine? Look good?
Hmm. I don't like this.
No?
Yeah, no.
No? Why not?
There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Mm,
The quotes are pretty bad. I
mm,
wouldn't quote things that I then deploy. It makes all uppercase
mm,
objects, so yeah, I'll try to avoid that.
mm,
The second thing is the options for the storage and percent free and all those options, they're usually environment specific. And the DBAs have their preference on which environment should have which options. So we should always use those environment specific options instead of putting them hard coded into our version control and
mm.
into our code. So I
Yeah.
want to get rid of those as well. And also the standardization on how we store code um, should be, yeah, like as
Okay.
minimal as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you're right because there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I'm not sure what people watching are thinking about this. Be interested to hear that, get their opinions on this, right? So if you've got comments on this, just let us know, and whether you think these are good or bad. The good news is for most of these things, we can get rid of them, right? So we can change whether it's got the terminator, primitive formatting, as you say, Jasmine, things like the storage attributes. Generally, we probably want to leave that up to the DBAs most of the time, right? Certainly, it could be different on different environments, different table spaces, things like that. So we probably don't want that in source control unless we want to very specifically override something. So most of the time, we want to exclude those. So we can do that with these DBMS metadata calls to get rid of most of the information, right? And then we can then find the metadata for all the objects, and we can do DBMS metadata from the DBA objects, and this will just kind of give us everything that we need, right? Sounding good so far? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't happy about those quotes though, right?
No, the quotes were really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, there isn't actually currently an option to disable this. I have put an enhancement request in, so hopefully that will be in some release in the future. Obviously, disclaimer, no idea when that will going to be. So hopefully that will come. But in the meantime, if you want to remove the quotes, you can use a lovely little regular expression like this, right? Looks great. You understand exactly what that means, right?
No, I don't know.
No, no,
But who
right.
does ever?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, unfortunately we can't just remove all quotes, just in case some, shall we call them brave person, decided to actually create some tables or objects in actual lowercase where you do need the quotes for them. So this is making sure we're only removing quotes from things which are fully in uppercase, because then it doesn't actually matter how you reference it from that on. If it is explicitly in lowercase or mixed case of some description, we need those quotes. Otherwise, you can never access the object again, which would be a bit of a problem. All right.
So we need to be a bit careful with this.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so then that gives us something. This is something like it's a bit cleaner, right? So we've got rid of the quotes, we've got rid of all the storage stuff, and I think it's a bit easier to understand, right? What do
It's
you think?
easier to understand. It looks smooth, but it's still shouting at us.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still all uppercase.
Yes, it's still uppercase. That's the problem. Yeah, so it's interesting actually. I'm curious to see what people think, whether people actually use uppercase versus lowercase and so on. And if I can just bring up the poll, we actually have a little poll on this.
Yeah,
So
we prepared a little poll.
Yeah.
And please answer it if you store your code in uppercase or lowercase or camel case even.
Yeah. So
Let us know.
yeah, camel case is quite common in like Java and other mid-tier programming languages, isn't it? Camel case, but I don't think it's very common in database code. Well, I
I
think
haven't seen camel case in database code yet,
I've seen it like once or twice, and it wasn't pretty.
but I've seen ton of uppercase.
Yes, exactly. So there's still lots of votes going in, so we'll give people another few seconds, and
Yeah.
mm, it's there has been a few people going for camel case, which is
Oh,
the question is, did they really do that, or are they just are they messing with us, or did they click
yeah,
the
maybe.
wrong? Okay, so I think we'll give people another couple of seconds. Some people saying it depends, right? Someone in the comments saying uppercase for keywords and lowercase for identifiers. And there wasn't an option for keywords in uppercase and
Yeah,
identifiers in lowercase. Oh, so yeah, that's a good point actually. So maybe that's affecting the vote here a little bit. Um, yeah, quite a few people. Maybe we should have had another option here, I guess.
yeah. A lot of people say that keywords uppercase and everything else is lowercase.
Yeah. Although some people are just saying use the format option in SQL Developer, which actually I think that's a reasonable option, right? Just
That's reasonable, yeah.
yeah use the formatter in your code, your IDE, your editor, whatever that is. All right. I think we've got pretty much all the votes in we've got at this point. So just share the results, and it's pretty much neck and neck between uppercase and lowercase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like I say, maybe some people were unsure which to vote for, given that there seems to be quite a few going for some of the keywords uppercase, identifiers lowercase. Interesting. Alrighty then.
Good. Yeah, let's continue.
Alrighty then. Okay, so we've we've got DBMS metadata, and we've got some options to help improve it. So we could write one script like call this, passing in the objects from DBA objects or user objects, whichever it is we need, calling DBMS metadata, and spool it all. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, I mean, at least we'll get the
Oh,
stuff, but we'll just get one massive giant file though, right here, which
yeah,
is
that won't help us with version control.
no. Certainly have a lot of merge conflicts, right? If there's or merge problems if there's or everything's in one file. So what we could do is create a little procedure that just writes a file per object. So takes in, what the object name, the object type, and so on, and write those to the database server. So files using UTL file, something like that. And then we can go through each of the object types. So we can go through and look at, like, for example, get the sequences, write the file DDL, then get the tables, get the DDL for the tables, get the DDL for the views, and so on and so forth. So we can get all the object types and export it all. So then we've got our, like say, we have a bit of version drift. We're not quite sure what's in source control and what's in production. So we know we've got a good baseline to start with. All right. So we got this. So let's.
Oh yeah, how can we run this? They revoked our production access, so we cannot just go and execute anything on all environments anymore.
Yeah, okay. I guess we've got to beg to the DBAs to actually get
Yeah,
to deploy or run this code so we can get our initial state and actually get us up and running, right?
yeah. Let's ask them to run this for us, and then we have a clean state of version control again.
Okay. So once we've got these files, then I guess how are we going to set up our source control?
You can see here the project structure of our version control folder and where all our code is stored and where we have a history of our changes. So this is where we create a new baseline of our production code. You see in top our pipeline definition of our continuous integration pipeline. It's GitLab CI. This is executing our migrations, hopefully in the futures. We have our documentation stored in there together with our code as Markdown. Then we have the DDL code. So all our objects are stored in this version control structure by type as we exported it. And then we have also our migrations in there. We have our changelog folder that contains all the migrations that we want to execute, and then all the migration scripts in different folders. And finally, we also have our test code and test data in there because we are very cautious about how our code functions. So we also want to test those.
Well, we should have been very cautious. Maybe
We
if
should have been very
those tests,
cautious, yeah.
maybe if
And
we
not
had those
go
tests.
to production and execute things.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
this test code tests our database logic and the behavior.
All right. So yeah, basically we've got everything the DBAs gives us is going to go in that DBA folder then, right? And then our changes go in migrations. Have I got that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All righty then. So let's
Yeah.
do this.
We
Right.
just need to write one release script now that contains the changes we wanted to do initially, and we're good.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea, but I'm a bit nervous now, right? Having screwed it up once, I think it might be better if we separated the releases, right? Because we would had DDL altering the table and code at the same time. I think it'd be good if we change the table first, and then when we're sure that's all fine, then actually deploy the code changes, right?
Oh, so decouple those changes from each other.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because then that
Yeah.
will avoid the problem of we got into where the code doesn't match the tables. And if there's a problem with the code, code's easier to roll back, right? Rather than DDL backing out, dropping columns is not something I want to be doing on production database, right?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah. Okay, so I think first one, if we run the DDL, so we have an alter table, and I think as well we had that missing grant, didn't we? Which was not great. I think this is the problem anyone who's done a lot of database releases has run into is deploying some code and it turns out you missed the grant and the whole thing fails because there's not execute or select privileges on something. I've certainly seen a release fail from this. I don't know about you. Have you seen that, Jasmine?
Yeah, a couple of times already, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the good thing is from 23 AI, you can actually grant schema level privileges. So we can grant select on every table in the schema. So once we've done that once, when we create our new view and our new procedure, we don't need to then worry, have we granted on that new object specifically? Our HR app will have access to everything, which will simplify things and stop these kind of aborted releases for privileges problems. Okay, so we've got our DDL, and then we've got our second release where we're going to have our view and our procedure. So hopefully the idea is we'll do the first release, verify it works, and at this point there'll be no functionality changes as well, right, with the database or the application, I should say. It's only when we deploy the code and update the app that end users will see something. Okay, so
Yeah.
you happy with this? I think this is sounding better, right?
Yeah, and it looks like two very small contained changes. So the risk should be very small.
Cool.
Yeah. So going forward, it would look now that we have the baseline from the DBAs and we checked that into version control. So we have the starting line. Then we're checking in the DDL as a first migration into source control and then executing it as a first migration. And if this went well, we can then continue with checking in the additional code of the code changes that you did and deploy those in a second migration.
Okay. So we just kind of got this continuous processes where we're adding it, migrating it, checking in, migrating it.
Yeah, always small parts at a time and then doing the migration.
Okay, cool. So this is all sounding good, but I think we still got a bit of a problem. Like BossCat
Oh yeah.
that said we couldn't actually run this ourselves, right? So what can we do? I don't think the DBAs like us either, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
we're in our releases. What can we do?
I guess we should probably automate this and use a migration tool.
Mm-hmm.
So the DBA already told me that he would provide a deployment user that we don't know the credentials of, but he would put those credentials into the migration tool so that we could deploy to production, but in an automated way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, and The migration tool would then automate the process of going from the initial database versions that we now have to a second version, applying our script that we developed, and then going to another version, applying the other scripts that we checked into source control, and automates all the things around applying the migration scripts on a certain environment of our database.
Cool.
So yeah, it's all automated. Everything's good.
Yeah,
Automation sounds great, right?
it does sound great. Okay. So what are you, that's kind of like a bit high level. I think, well, which tools or what tools are there that can help us here?
Yeah, when it comes to migration tools, we really have two prominent options, or the two leading options are Flyway and Liquibase. Depending on which environment that people work, there are a couple of other options, but those are the most prominent ones out there currently. They are both open source. They both use versioned migrations, so we write our migration scripts ourselves, put them in, and then they are executing them against a certain environment. They also both have a wide variety of database support, so they're not Oracle tools. They support all the databases out there, or a lot of databases out there, and both offer CLI functionality, which is very important for automating it into our CI pipeline.
Cool.
So that was the similarities, but they are also a bit different. When it comes to defining changes, Flyway uses SQL scripts to define changes. So we only can include SQL scripts when we want to add database migrations. And Liquibase, on the other hand, provides a whole plethora of options when we want to define our change sets. We can define them in SQL, XML, YAML, JSON. However, I'd recommend people to use SQL files, because SQL files are the files that we can lint. So if you have a code checker or anything, if you have an XML file with SQL in there, it's a lot harder to make to lint those.
Yeah.
They also have different migration files and executions, or execution setup. Flyway has the migration order in the name of the migration file. As you can see here, this is version 1 of a migration file. So depending on the numbering that you put in there, or the lettering if you want so, the files are executed in this order. If you are developing in a bigger development team, you need to be careful which developer chooses which number.
Yeah,
So yeah, talk to each other and yeah, give numbers to developers. Liquibase, on the other hand, has a master changelog file that defines the order of the migration files. So no matter the name of your migration file, the master changelog file then defines the order. We will later see an example of this changelog file, which is written in XML actually. They both support a variety of databases. Flyway currently supports like 22 SQL databases, and Liquibase a bit more, like 50 SQL databases and a couple of NoSQL databases.
Okay.
So yeah, that's our two options that we have.
All right. So you talk about Flyway in a bit more detail then.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about the execution order of the files. And as you can see here, we can have different locations where files are stored, but overall of those locations, the execution order still is depending on which name that we set. So the migration file name number defines the deployment order, no matter where the files are located in our defined locations.
Say that could get tricky coordinating in large teams, right?
Yeah, it could be tricky coordinating, or you need to have a process around it to make sure it works and have, one number per developer. Liquibase, on the other hand, we have change sets, and a change set is nothing different of a migration script, or what we call migration file, that is ready for deployment. And if I have a migration file ready for deployment, I include it in the master changelog file. So the master changelog contains all the migrations in a certain order. And I just add the name of the SQL files into this changelog file. And then it goes into source control and we can deploy it automatically.
Cool.
Let's have a look at a certain changelog file here. You can see the Liquibase structure on the left. And if you go forward, yeah, you can see the changelog file as an XML shown here. We have the path to the migration file in the changelog file, so the add job history audit SQL. You can add some information around this. And then if you want to execute the Liquibase migration, you execute Liquibase update, which hopefully is then done by our continuous integration pipeline. And we provide the name of our master changelog file, and the migration happens automatically.
Magic. That sounds
Magic,
good.
yeah.
Okay, so I think yeah, I'm not happy about this kind of like having to get the version numberings all in sync, right? So
Yeah.
which tool do you think we should use here?
Yeah, I guess let's go with Liquibase. We're a bit more flexible with the ordering, and because our team is probably very big,
Hmm.
yeah, we're more flexible with this and don't have to think about the numbers too much.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so if we have like an example of how this might look, we might have like we said we have our two changes, our two releases, right? So we got our first one with our grants and our audit, and then our second one, which calls the procedure and the view, right? So I think so we'd structure things a bit like this, right?
That makes sense, yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's like the overview. Let's look at how this actually then we will use this to kind of not break everything, or hopefully not break everything,
So
right?
after we had our baseline, we put my DDL changes in a changelog into Liquibase. So I write the DDL, check it in, and then execute Liquibase. So Liquibase deploys my DDL. It is hopefully successful.
Mm-hmm.
Then you commit your code, and Liquibase deploys your migration as well. That's
Mm.
how we should have done it, I guess, from the beginning.
Yeah. So we're getting everything out of source control, right? So because our tool, the tool then just does a pulls the latest changes, right? Runs though and corresponding migrations, and hopefully it all works. Well, we'll do this in a test environment first as well, like you said.
Yeah, we're doing this in a test environment first, but yeah, hopefully it works.
Okay, cool. So I think let's before we move on, I think it's a good question about how would people, if people actually are familiar with this kind of structure, right? I think we've got another poll, which I will pull up.
Yeah, the question here is who stores the DDL files together with your migration scripts? Are you only storing your migration scripts in version control, or are you also exporting the DDLs, like the updated objects, into version control to just have them?
Yeah, because we had
So
the kind of the current state, like
Mhm.
the DBAs gave us in our DB folder and in our separate migration folder, right?
Exactly. So we have the state of our database for each version that we have and the migrations that go from one version to the next one.
Yeah. So while people are voting on this a little bit, I see someone's asking SQLcl as Liquibase integration as well. That's a great point, and I think that's another reason why we're choosing Liquibase, right?
Exactly. It's a bit easier because it's already in all our environments. When
Exactly.
we have Oracle, yeah, SQLcl is in our home directory usually.
Hmm. Yes. So yeah, so we are actually going to use SQLcl to run the Liquibase command. So thanks, you've seen where we've gone with this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's another more interesting question, and it's saying, isn't using EBR a better practice than using all these source version control tools as they are inevitably external to the database? So what's your thoughts on that, Jasmine?
I think EBR is really a different use case. When you use EBR, you usually want to expose different versions of the database to your customers. For all the people that don't know EBR, we're talking about edition-based redefinition that allows us to have multiple versions of our PL/SQL objects in the database in parallel, so that we have like a versioned API of our database for our customers. So we can have that and still use continuous integration, because continuous integration and source control allow us to develop our database continuously, and also have an overview of which changes were done by which developer, and automate. So version control is the precondition for all automation that happens.
Yeah. I
And
think,
it's pretty important to, yeah,
yeah,
to say
so
that we can have one and the other, but
exactly.
they're a bit different use cases.
Yeah, I agree. They're no kind of they complement each other, right? They're not you wouldn't you
Yes,
want they're not alternate tools or they're not mutually exclusive.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think at this point, pretty much everyone who's voted was going to vote. So let's just show that and share the results. And you see, it looks like most people are actually storing
Oh,
both in version control. About two-thirds of people. So that seems fairly. I'm fairly reassured with about that. What do you think, Jasmine?
yeah, I think that's positive.
Yeah, so that's quite good.
Maybe we missed the thing, I don't use version control, this option. There still
Yeah,
might be people that don't
yeah.
use version control at all, but yeah, this sounds promising.
It does sound promising. Yeah, so okay, we had slightly less people vote this time. Maybe the people who don't use
Who
version
don't use
control
version control, they didn't vote. So yeah,
they had no option,
maybe.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess then, like I say, there's if you've got the database and the migration scripts, there's an interesting question here, right? Of how we keep them in sync.
Exactly. When we create new migration scripts, the state of our DDLs always change. And it's really not that easy to keep them in sync, because it's usually all manual work. When I do a migration and implement those changes, I have to update all the DDLs as well.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to get some thoughts from people if anyone's got any questions or comments on how they managed to do that. Because you say we've got our script which does us alter table to add those columns, but then if we've got our database state for that, we need to put that into the create table, right? It's an interesting problem, and you say it's quite tricky.
It's
How have
quite
you
tricky,
solved
and
it?
you can easily lose overview on what you changed, and maybe you don't want to promote changes that you did in the development environment, and then you just selectively create your migration scripts. So yeah, it will be interesting what people have
Yeah, I guess it is.
processes in place.
So if you've got comments on that, I think you might have some, hopefully we'll get some interesting comments on that. But while we're
Yeah,
doing that, maybe we should move on and look at the demo and see how this is going to work in practice now. Shall we?
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, so yeah, let us know how if you do keep your DDLs and migration scripts in sync, how you've got a process for do it. If you don't do it, you can just let us know, just say no or something. If you've got no ideas, then let us know. While you're doing that, let's look at how we can use this. So as we said, we're now going to use SQLcl in Liquibase in SQLcl. So first up, just kind of look at our change log. So our first change log file looks something a bit like this, and we can see Jasmine's made these changes. It's a name of what the change is, and there's a SQL script, and there's the one for the grants. And we look over, there's the actual SQL script itself. So there's the adding the table, here's the grants. So our first change log, basically, this is going to run through these things and apply them to the database. That'll be release one. Release two, we've then got the view and we've got the procedure. So again, this is like the controller file to tell Liquibase what to do, what's in the actual release and our scripts here. So again, we've got our new view here. I notice I have actually listed all the columns out now. So
That
I
looks
got
good.
yeah, well, I got your fixes, Jasmine. So did it properly. And again, listed out actually list the columns out here as well. So we don't have a problem. At some point in the future, if we decide to add columns, we're not going to break everything again. So we've got those things, and for those of you actually something probably should have mentioned, I'm using the SQL Developer VS Code extension. So this is all in VS Code, very popular tool. earlier, I say earlier this year, no, it was last year. Um, Last year there was a an extension added for VS Code, and one of the things this allows us to do is actually run SQLcl from within it. So I've got my HR connection over here on the left. I'm going to open SQLcl, and that will open up a terminal. And let me just get rid of the previous stuff so we're not confusing ourselves. So let's open SQLcl. And let me just pull up what I need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the directory, taking a minute to actually connect. So we're connected to the database. So I can go to this location on my file system, which is where the actual migration is. And then we can, in there, we can see there's the changelog files. So we want to run our first one, and we can do a Liquibase update. Let me just grab that command from over there. So we've got Liquibase update. That will run away and run Jasmine's changes. So alter the table and add those in there. So you can see it is run 2 changes. Liquibase is successful. Rows affected 2. So now, if you might want to see what those changes are, we can look at the changelog. And those are the scripts. So this gives us the audit of what happened when. And if we describe our job history table now, hopefully we'll see, yeah, we've got our new columns there, our timestamp columns. Okay, so we've done that and deployed our release. Now, one of the things this does for us, because it's got an audit of the change, if somehow we run release twice, so let me just run the command again, because we're managing this all through Liquibase, it knows it's already applied this change. So it says previously run to, it doesn't double apply them. So if we do end up in a situation where, for whatever reason, we end up running this twice on the same database, we're not going to end up in a weird state where we've run things twice and we have to worry about what happens if columns are there or not there and things like that. Liquibase knows it's already been run, so we won't do it again. Okay. So we saw we had our new columns on the table. We also want to see that we've actually got our grants as well. So if I go as I back over to app test, so we just, we need to reconnect because we had to restart the database for the thing. So HR app, it's got the schema level privileges. You say, first glance, you might look at this and say, select any table, execute any procedures. It sounds a bit scary, right, Jasmine?
It does, yeah.
So we're, things we learned quite early is these are dangerous privileges, don't give them out, but they are only on this schema. So we can see HR app can access the job history. We can see we've got our new columns there, can access the jobs table, access all the tables, but it can't access any table in anywhere. It's only all the stuff in the HR schema. So I think we're looking good so far. We've got our first migration done. And let's go on and now run our second release. Let me just pull the thing up here. So let's just copy that. So this time we're just running the changelog 2, and that had the view and the procedure in it. So it's run 2 things. Again, if we actually want to double check, we can see our changelog, and there we go. We've got the files. Now, obviously, to actually see the actual SQL changes, we have to look in those files, but we can see that is what has happened. So we've got that. And now if we go back over to our app test again, remember we've created this view new, but we didn't give any grants on it. But because we've got grant any, it just works. Same for change job. Again, this time it does actually work. Phew. I was seeing the previous errors and getting a bit worried for a minute there. It did actually work. Thank you. And there we go. We've got all our changes, bumping Boss Cat back down to be a programmer again, and see how he likes it, right? But I know I'm not sure Boss Cat's going to be too happy about that, right, Jasmine?
I'm not sure about that, no.
Alrighty then. So I saw there was some.
There are questions, yeah.
Yeah, go on. Did you?
One question is, if I have a multi-schema environment, how do I handle dependencies between them? first deploy one schema and then the HR schema, for example. So if we have different schemas, what's the order of work that we do?
I don't know. Do you have you got particular thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I used the multi-schema environments in a data warehouse situation where you usually have for the different layers, different schemas that depend on each other. And in this scenario, we always had an execution order of which changes to apply first. So we stored all of those all the source control of the data warehouse in a single version control system. And the version control system then made sure that the changes are split into the schema orders. So the execution was then quite straightforward, one schema after another. But when you have a multi-schema environment, a second approach would be to split them into different applications if they don't depend on each other too much.
Yeah, that's a tricky place if they depend on each other. I think you just got
Yeah.
to then work through the dependencies, right, and figure out which order it needs to go in.
Yeah, the difficult thing is if you have looping dependencies between the schemas, you should always avoid that because then you have to go through them maybe multiple times until everything is valid again.
Yeah, I think avoiding that sounds like good advice,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So there's a few other comments as well. Uh, okay, so you're saying about Liquibase integration, there is a new command project that manage
Yeah.
migration and DDL. Could this option be more advanced? So that's a
It is more advanced, yeah.
yeah.
It does export the files of our dev environment, for example. The tricky thing with the SQLcl project command is you need to have a very tidy dev environment, or the environment where you export from needs to be very clean. You cannot have like development prototypes lying around because those will be exported as well. So you need to be a bit careful with this, but it provides the functionality to export all of it.
Yeah. I think every development database I've seen has like a ton of junk, which is never
Yeah.
supposed to make it into production, right?
So yeah, be careful, and if you use it, yeah, test it really in depth if it works for you and if it works for your development process.
Yeah. So I will say as well, it's quite a new tool. It only came out sometime last year, so it is being improved kind of quite rapidly. So I know maybe we'll do this again in a year or so and be able to look at that in a bit more depth, right? So as
Yeah, that would be interesting too, how to use it in production.
yeah, yeah. See, someone saying they use DB Flow for that. The migration script is generated per run on the fly. I have a different artifact for different target stages. Okay, are you familiar with DB Flow at all? Or?
No, I don't know dbflow, but it sounds that it's not a migration-based migration tool, but a state-based. Some of the tools compare environments and then generate the migration scripts from the different environments, from the diff that exists. Maybe
Hmm.
it's something like that, but it's all guessing. I don't know the tool.
Yeah, I'm not familiar either, so I can't say either. And someone says, so this should all be integrated into the CD pipeline tool of your choice, right?
Exactly, yeah. Ideally, you have a CI pipeline first, a continuous integration pipeline, where you do this in a Docker container first to all apply to apply the changes in integration first, because you hit an actual environment where you have state and migrate something on a real database. So the CD, the continuous delivery pipeline, then would apply the changes to test integration and production environments for you.
Mm. Yeah, cool. That sounds good. So I think let's move on. There are some more comments, but I think we're getting
Yeah,
close to the hour, so we can wrap
yeah, we
this up
can.
and see if we've got time at the end, right? Okay, so just to kind of recap, having moved to kind of Liquibase or Liquibase and SQLcl, the migrations were actually nice and easy, right? We just needed to run Liquibase update. And as Jasmine says, hopefully we've run this in test at least once before, so we can be reasonably sure that it is actually going to work and things are kind of nice and safe. So we saw, and it all worked, right? I'm
Yes.
happy.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't mess up with the automation, so it gave us a lot of confidence.
Hmm, exactly. Okay, so should we recap this?
Yeah, let's recap this. So for database versioning and releasing, our top tips is you should always share your code in source control with your other developers working on your database project. So export all your database code into version control and use it as a central development platform. Don't email code, don't Slack code, yeah, don't SMS code. It's not a good idea.
No, it's not.
Always version control your code. Keep your changes small, so they should be as small as possible. They should be in separate files because the smaller your changes are, um, the more confident you can be that they will be successful when you apply them. And when it comes to deployment, always use a migration tool. Don't do manual deployments. Don't log in to any production environment and do a manual execution of some SQL files. You really should avoid that. So automation and migration tools give us the confidence to release quickly and also release securely.
That sounds good. I think, yeah.
Maybe, yeah, as a bonus tip, if Chris didn't create a restore point initially, we wouldn't be able to flash back our messed up changes. So always create restore points before you do deployments. You can always, if you have a pipeline, automatically remove them as well when your deployment was successful.
Mm. Yeah, I think, I mean, it is important to be aware of that this is like your kind of last resort because you do have to restart the database. So you've got very high uptime requirements. You need to think very carefully about this.
Yeah,
Um, but it's something I use them very successfully for was testing database releases because even when you're keeping them small, quite often it can take two or three goes to get it right in test, right, Jasmine? I've had that problem. Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
so you can run it through your pipeline to the test environment, and then restore back, flash the database back to before the release, rerun it through test as many times as you need to, right, until you're certain, confident as you can be that it's all going to be fine. So this is, just gives you an extra level of security and insurance in case something goes hideously wrong.
Yeah. In the chat, there was another tip. So use
Yeah.
automated testing. We had it in the slides that we have automated test.
Yes.
That's maybe also an additional tip
Yeah, that's a
to
good point.
validate things.
Yeah, we didn't show automated tests. Maybe again
No.
something for version 2, right?
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Yeah, so got a bunch of links. If you want the scripts from this, you can see I've got them over on. I've uploaded them onto GitHub. I've actually used source control, right? So they are all in source control and various other links as well. I'm just going to put these links in chat so you've got access to them. Um, and anything else you want to say before we wrap up and say goodbye, Jasmine?
I've got nothing from my side.
No, okay, that's great. Well, I'm really glad you're able to join me today, Jasmine. It's been great fun. I think hopefully we've
Yeah, it was great being here. Thank you.
already then. And just to say, for those of you joining us, really hope you enjoyed this. More importantly, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you again in February for the next SQL office hours. Alrighty then. Goodbye.
Bye.